Hello all, Alison here. Welcome back to Words and Pictures for a few minutes of fun. I'm going to make some backgrounds, tag backgrounds. I'm thinking of using stencils, and I've got distress inks in pad and spray form and some distress oxides around as well. And water. Water is going to be one of my chief allies today, along with some kitchen paper and even probably some baby wipes. They're still, yeah, I think they're probably still moist in there. Yeah, you'll see, because what we're going to do is some lifting of ink colour. I thought I'd have an experiment with some spray backgrounds and some blended backgrounds, ink blended backgrounds, and just see the kinds of different effects we get. I've got my splat box here, so I'm just going to very quickly create a couple of sprayed backgrounds in here. I want a little bit of an angle on them so that they'll drift a little bit. Don't know what sort of mood of colours I'm in really. I've pulled out blues and a few sort of purpley things and brownish things, but I don't really know what I'm really in the mood for. So that's Stormy Sky and Shaded Lilac that have gone down so far. This is Salvaged Patina or Patina, depending on your place of origin with your British or American accent. And then I'm just going to, yeah, here comes the water for the first little spritz, just to let those move around a little bit. And I think into those I might put a couple of splotches of distress oxide just for fun. So this is Stormy Sky, which is a beautiful tone in tone when you've got Stormy Sky distress ink and Shaded Lilac distress ink. The Stormy Sky oxide has a sort of beautiful way of speaking to both of those. So I'm just letting those backgrounds really sort of look after themselves pretty much. A little bit of tilting here and there. I might do a little bit of dabbing here and there. Might do a little bit of cross pollination here and there. But overall, I rather like those, and I'd like them to just sit in a corner and dry for a bit, I think. I might set them just a little bit with the heat tool to just help them on their way. Send that down there a little bit. That's coming away from the edge. Yeah, I'm going to set those to dry, and this is just layer one, so no worrying at this point. But what I do want is when I set them to dry, I'd like them approximately flat so that they're not going to do too much running. Right, I'll pop those down behind me, and I might just do a couple more while we're here, and maybe go again with a little bit of similar colours to start with. Stormy Sky. Do love Stormy Sky, always been a favourite of mine. Little bit of the Shaded Lilac again, little bit of I did enjoy the Salvaged Patina, but I think what I want to do is maybe go with a little bit of vintage photo. I'm in a bit of a vintage photo kind of world, and what I will then do is add, oh no, let's go Stormy Sky again. Stormy Sky Oxide again into there to just give it a bit of oxide chalkiness in places. And those I like really quite a lot, except I'd like something just a little rustier. Maybe Rusty Hinge. Just in with those. As soon as vintage photo comes out to play, it just feels rusty to me. So I think it's going to be that. That's a bit too much Rusty Hinge, so I'll just put a drop of vintage photo onto it. And I'm not sure I'm going to add water to these ones. I kind of like them as they are. But what I might do is dab a little bit of that extraneous colour out so that it doesn't get too wild in its mixing. But overall, that's a pretty nice pair, I think. Again, I'd like them to Just be a little flatter for as they're drying. I'm enjoying that spot of rust to the extent that I might want another spot of rust. So again, it's looking and seeing the things that are giving you pleasure, and then maybe choosing to accentuate those things. Again, too much of just plain rust. So just a touch of vintage photo on top of it there. Good, let's set those aside to dry as well. So while those spray ones are drying, now I'm looking at these and thinking, so these are the ones that were drying. I'm looking at these and thinking, no, I'm definitely in rusty mode. So there goes a little bit of vintage photo. And we might put a little bit of rusty Hinge on there as well, just to mix in to that little game. And then what I do want to do is a bit more of this Oxide version to just create a bit of chalky magic along with that rust. Good, might let that just go back and continue doing its thing now, but you can see that that background has been changing even while we've been busy doing other things. So yeah, really letting those backgrounds look after themselves can be quite an interesting game in and of itself. Yeah, I could fiddle like this for hours, can you tell? Just putting a little dot of that, and then I am going to give it a little dot of that. And then, yeah, pick it up, just so it's not too mad as it does its drying. Grand. Okay, you guys go over here and continue your drying process, and we'll do a little bit of ink blending in the meantime. Let's pop that away. I'm debating playing with those, but we might save those for an embossing powder kind of a day. Grand. So I'm going to do similar colours just to keep things harmonious. So a little bit of Salvaged Patina going on here. No idea what was already on the brush, but I'm going to live with what on the blending tool, but I'm going to live with whatever it is. And as per usual, I'm heading in from the edge of the tag to just add that colour, bringing it in from the edges, starting on the mat, and that rotating movement to just bring colour into the tag. Not bothered about the odd crease, it'll add to the distressed look later on. That's grand. So a little bit like so. What else should we have with this? I think I'm quite in the mood for Stormy Sky today, so let's take a little bit of that into the mix. I might need to re-ink my Stormy Sky one of these days. I think it's a little bit depleted. Oh no, it's coming. That beautiful grey blue. And as you all know, if you're a regular here, the grey tones will always make me happy. Something about that little touch of melancholy. So I'm usually fairly inclined to leave little patches of light within my tags, places where I don't ink too heavily. Today I might make an exception, because if I'm going to lift ink colour away with some water or a baby wipe, then it would be quite a good idea to have plenty of ink colour there. No, this does want re-inking. Not pulling much colour off there. There we go. That's a bit better. Good. So maybe shaded lilac. Have we got a lilac spongy thing on the go-ish? I have a feeling that may have been Distress Oxide on there though, but we'll see. Let's bring it in, see what we get. Oh, that's pretty. Good, so I'm working with my usual Manila tags. They are the same as the Ranger Manila tags used to be, not the current mixed media. They used to produce a Manila tag. I'm not sure that they do now. But yeah, I used to source mine in bulk from an independent craft store online in the UK, and sadly they went out of business, unable to compete with Amazon and their like. So yeah, I'm working through my last couple of boxes, and when these are gone, I'm going to have to try and source myself somewhere new, because without my tags, I don't know what I would do. So that's some lovely gentle colour going on. We could do a spritz and flick, but I'm not going to. If you've seen the spritz and flick video, then you'll know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, I'll link it down below. Maybe a little bit more. But there's a surface on these tags that means the ink sits really nicely on top. If you've got very, very absorbent paper, this technique is not going to work nearly as well, because your inks are going to sink down into the paper and be much less willing to lift up again. So here's some Uncharted Mariner into the mix, because I do like a bit of Uncharted Mariner. And yes, as I say, a little bit of depth of colour is going to serve this technique well. Just peering over my shoulder to see how the other tags are doing. See if I maybe want to go and do a little bit of altering of them. I think they're doing all right. No, we'll leave them be. We'll leave them be. A little bit of brown, I think. Maybe walnut stain. I thought I had a brown. Yes, I do have a brown. I thought I did. Yeah, and the brown, as soon as you go over something like Salvaged Patina or over these blues, you get a beautiful bronzy kind of affair happening. And as you can see, I'm just building up layers of colour, and because the inks are translucent, I haven't used any oxides so far in terms of blending. Because the inks are translucent, you get that lovely layering effect where if it's going over another colour, it'll pick up some of that colour, and it's like a glazing effect in watercolour. If it's going over blank card, there's not a lot of blank card left, you get the colour in its truest tone. But that's rather mistily beautiful, I think. Quite enjoying that. Maybe a little touch of just to make it echo what's going on the spritzed tags. So this is rusty Hinge, but as you saw, I stuck with the same blending tool, so it's working its way through the walnut stain first. And yeah, those lovely, and I think I want a bit more shaded lilac over the top. I think I'm quite enjoying the shaded lilac today. Just that sort of purpley tone, something really rather nice about it. Let's get it onto there. There we go. So again, as you see, building up depth of colour. Don't mind about the odd crease, that's fine. Yeah, I think one of the reasons I'm enjoying the shaded lilac today is, again, it's got that greyness to it. Grand. So having put all that ink onto these tags, I'm now going to experiment with lifting it up again. So as I mentioned, a couple of ways to do this. One, water spray and some kitchen roll. One, possibly simpler, use a baby wipe. That's not a very moist one on the top, but the one underneath I think is going to be moist enough. So I'm going to start with this, and then we can have a little go with spraying as well in a minute. So that one is a little moister. Let's see, I'm going to pop down this Fade stencil, it's quite a new one, and just go in with the moist baby wipe, getting down into those holes. And we get a lift away, a really subtle, beautiful kind of effect that looks like, I don't know, faded, weathered, ancient wallpaper, maybe. So that moisture is just lifting away the ink from underneath. And conceivably, if you give it a little dab with the paper towel, any additional moisture might come away too. but you can see the subtlety of that little effect there. Gonna go in with, what other? Maybe, yeah, maybe this. So you want to, so this stencil is mostly space. So you're going to end up taking all your ink away. This stencil is going to leave more ink behind because what we've got are just sort of occasional design elements in there. And again, I'm not doing the whole surface, as is my usual way. I'm letting things fade in and out. So there's quite a lot of moisture gone down in there. I'm going to try picking some of it up with the paper towel before I lift away. Oh, it's just a beautiful kind of fade that you get. And again, I look at the tag, I see where maybe I could lift up some more and make an interesting thing happen. I love the subtlety of that. I love the subtlety of that. Grand. Let's see where some of our spray ones are at and see if they're remotely ready to have a go at the same thing. No, I think we want a little bit of drying to go on. So I'll give these a little blast with the heat tool and then we'll come in and see what we can achieve. So for a fair experiment, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to take the stencil and the baby wipe, still the same baby wipe. But this one, so there are some spots on here that I really don't want to mess with. I want to keep that lovely rusty hinge splatter there. This is a bit boring and this is a bit boring. So those are the two places I'm going to head for to see what I can lift away. And I've done this a lot with blended ink. I've done it very rarely with sprays, partly because I don't use sprays much as sprays. I'm more inclined to spritz and flick with them. And do something like that. Oh, but that's good, isn't it? So look how that's just created interest in that slightly dull bit of the tag. Let's go for another bit of that over this slightly dull bit up here. Here you've got beautiful chalky oxide things going on, but this, it's nice where these two colours meet, but I feel like it could be more interesting. So this fade one has got lovely sort of variation in detail. I'm going to go for sort of fairly subtle, the smaller ones, I think, for this. So again, I'm making sure I'm pressing down into those holes so that the moisture really gets through. And just hitting a few of those little diamonds to just see if we can beef up the interest in that top corner of the tag. Again, the dry paper towel is going to lift some more of that moisture away. And you get, yeah, those lovely hints of light. Very happy with that. There's my other tag. So looking again, that's a bit dull here. This I feel could have a little bit more going on in it, and maybe up here. So let's see what we can do with our Gothic crosses. It's not called Gothic cross. It'll be linked in the description. I can't remember what it calls itself. Something that I never remember what it's called and have to go searching every time for this one. But it will be linked in the description along with everything else. So you can see with that, I'm not getting quite to the edges of the shape with the moisture. I don't know if you can see that from the distance you're at, but it is giving me that extra bit of detail. Love it. I love it. So I'm gonna bring myself down through these bits. Again, just working into those holes, seeing if I can get a little bit further to the edges this time. And the key is to get the moisture in there, because it's the moisture that is going to lift the ink. And then obviously lifting the stuff away using the paper towel is also helping, because that's just helping bring away the ink. Look how that's just putting a bit of light in there. So you remember what I said about I very often like to leave light. I'm going back in because I'd like that dot in the middle lifted if I can get it. I'm missing a bit of light right in the center of that cross. I don't know whether I can get it up. Yeah, so usually when I'm ink blending, I will leave light, but what this gives me is a chance that if I have left some light, I can retrieve some light by using this technique. Yeah, see, I just wanted that lifted dot right in the middle there. And then I think I'm going to put one right in this corner. Just another little lift. So again, the process is looking, seeing what's needing more detail, more interest, more excitement as a background. You might love your background exactly as it is, or you might want to just give it a little extra oomph. Grand. So we've got 2 more sprayed backgrounds. We haven't got 2 more blended backgrounds to do the other version of this, which is the water and the spray and the lift with the kitchen towel. So I'm just going to create 2 more blended backgrounds, I think. And what I want with them is to remember what colours I did here. So it's Shaded Lilac and Stormy Sky. There was Salvaged Patina, and Chalky Stormy Sky, wasn't there? So let's do a combination. So I'm going to go in, this will be bold. I'm going to go in maybe first of all with a bit of Rusty Hinge, if I can find a one I can do that with. Let's take that around there. That's already got some vintage photo on there, so this is not clear Rusty Hinge I'm getting. This is mixed with walnut stain and Rusty Hinge and vintage photo. So it's a kind of mid-brown, not full-on rusty. Now it's getting a bit rustier. But that's fine, because what I'm going to do is come in with some... I thought I had the vintage photo out. I don't. Let's go walnut stain then. So always a much greyer brown, the walnut stain, darker, cooler brown. Very much to my taste, as you can imagine. Right, let's get some... Oh, I see Stormy Sky was the one that was misbehaving, wasn't it? Let's see what we can get out of it. Oh, I know. Let's put a bit of faded jeans in. That'll bring up the blue quotient. Let's go in with that. There we go. That's a good compromise, rather than bullying the Stormy Sky, which clearly needs re-inking. And again, you've already seen, because we're creating texture on these tags, I'm not terribly bothered about blending lines here. Often you can smooth those out just by keeping going, adding more layers. I'm also not terribly worried about getting fingerprints on the tags, because that's also going to happen. We'll pop in some Salvaged Patina. Oh, did you see what? So that was not coming from the edge, and immediately you get those sort of the signs of the movement. It's somehow much easier to create that blended look if you bring yourself on from the side of the tag. But as I say, in this particular case, because what we're doing is creating additional texture on these tags anyway, I'm not hugely worried about how that's building up. Let's see if we can put some Shaded Lilac on here. Where's my purpley one? It's nice, I like it. But you can see the different ways you choose to apply your ink, even though they're the same distress colours, makes a massive difference to the kind of effect you get. I'm going to go in with a bit more of that. I think I am going to come in with some full-on Salvaged Patina in places. Let's see what we can get. It's not going to be that full on because it's already coming over other colours. That's the other thing to remember about this. But it does give us that lovely bronze as the turquoise and the Rusty Hinge meet. So that bronzing, I mean in kind of Stone Age, Iron Age, Bronze Age as opposed to suntan bronze. Metal bronze is what I'm talking about. Good, so we've got that sort of echo of those colours that are happening there. If I add a little bit more salvaged patina over the salvaged patina, then I can get a bit more salvaged patina look. If I add some more rusty hinge over the rusty hinge, I can get a bit more rusty hingeness. Stay there. And maybe I do want to get the vintage photo out and let it come out to play. Yeah, it just beefs that up beautifully. Vintage photo just has this way of bringing other colours to life. It's really interesting. And then maybe just a little more shaded lilac if I can get it going. I think probably what's happening with the shaded lilac is the sponge is a bit duff. Don't know why. Let's see if we can really get some colour. That's nice. Sorry if you can hear the table squeaking. There's a lot of vigorous blending action going on. Good. So in those layers of colour now, got really quite nice things happening. I'm slightly inclined to do like, I just can't resist a spritz and flick, but rather than spritz and flick with water, I'm going to do a little spritz and flick with some shaded lilac, just to add a bit more detail before we go for the lifting process, because I like my detail. And because we've got such a bold rusty hinge going on there, I'm also inclined to give us a slightly bolder rusty hinge, like so. Just something extra going on in the back of the tag. And now that I've done it there, I really want to do it here too. That's off camera, isn't it? That's just these other two that we were playing with, also getting their own little spritz and flick. So it's just the blended ones I'm doing that too. There's plenty going on the others. It just makes me happy. Right, so let's do some lifting, this time with a spritz of water. So bear in mind you've got less control with this version, because the water is going to kind of seep under the stencil. I mean, you can, if you hold it down really firmly. So I'm just spritzing on some water, and then I'm going to use a paper towel to just see if I can get down into those holes again and lift up what's underneath. So this is just if you don't happen to have any baby wipes to hand, can you achieve? So that's a much softer lift. It has lifted, but if you compare, that's not a fair comparison, that's the blended one. It's almost a sort of airbrushed look, and it's not lifted quite as much. So if I'm not going to be able to line this up perfectly, am I? Just thinking if I were to go in, maybe I could immediately get some more. No, I'm not going to be able to line that up. Ooh, except I think it's there. I'm going to come in and just intensify that effect with the baby wipe. Yeah, so that does get me a better lift. If you want that soft airbrush look, then that's a really good way to get it with the water. And if you don't happen to have any baby wipes, you can see you can do that. But the baby wipe is not only giving me more accuracy with where I go, it's giving me a better lift when I get there. I just want to take some little ones down into this blue patch. There's 3 little stars there. So yeah, that's very rapidly sorted out for me, which is my favourite version of this exercise. I want to go over one of these strong rusty bits just to see what the impact is of lifting up that really strong rusty colour. So again, I'm just going in, really trying to get into the corners of those. Yeah, I like that. I like that. Good. I don't think I'm going to mess around with the water and the paper towel on this one. Just because I want my background the way I want it. I don't want to have the soft version. I want the properly lifted. This baby wipe is drying out a little bit now. No, if I give it a squeeze, I've still got moisture. So again, I'm just trying to get down into those little spaces. Then I will use some paper towel. And yeah, I've lifted up the ink pretty much all the way back to the surface. Let's come in over this top bit, because that's also a little bit, I think I want a little bit here and maybe just a couple of little bits there. So again, you see, I'm looking, quite deliberately choosing where I want this to happen. Now, because over here I've got quite interesting patterns going on, maybe I will go for another spritzed version, just to see if I can improve my technique. Now, you see, I can see that spreading out. Well, it was maybe spreading out over the top of the stencil, but my feeling is it was spreading out underneath the stencil. So yeah, it has. Although I don't dislike what's happened, just because of how the water has interacted there. Let's make sure that's dry. But then I am going to go back in and get a proper lift using the baby wipe again. Just so within that softness now, I'm going to get that shaping. Nice, happy with that. And then the blended ones. See, look at that spritz and flick texture. It's kind of all you need. If you haven't watched the spritz and flick episode, I do recommend it to your attention. It's one of the simplest techniques, and it's one of the ones that still gives me the most joy. So again, just getting some moisture down into those little spaces. This baby wipe's almost done now, I think. Let's see what we can lift up. Create a little bit more detail on that spritz and flick background. Nice. Let's get another baby wipe. Might as well, since they're here and they're drying out anyway, might as well use them. I don't know how long I've had that packet of baby wipes. Years, definitely years. It came over from England, so with my packed craft stash, so it's at least 4 years now, and it wasn't new when it left England. So let's see what we can. I do like this fade stencil. It's still fairly new to me and I haven't used it that much, but I do like what it'll do. So the thing is also, once you've lifted, so in certain places you can lift colour away, there's of course nothing stopping you going in and using the stencil with ink to create another layer. I don't know that the rusty hinge is going to show up massively, but it should do. Yes, there we go, look. So I've now got a lifted layer and an inked layer. So I'm building detail in those backgrounds, lifted and inked. Let's do a little bit of that down here, because look how good an inked bit, and it'd be really nice if the inked bit kind of emerged out of the lifted bit. Enjoying that quite a lot. And you can of course do that in the same way here. You don't have to use the Gothic cross. You can use the faded one again to add a little bit of extra detail here. This is why Tim Holtz called them layering stencils, because you can layer one stencil over another stencil. So let's, while that's there, where are my Gothic crosses? So these are lifted fades. So let's add a bit of detail with the Gothic cross. Nice. And a little bit down here. Am I off camera again? It's because I'm busy playing. Yep, happy with that. What are we supposed to be doing with this one? Ooh, look, I've just seen this and want to add to it just a nice little cross across there. Ooh, look at that. Look at that. That's what I'm talking about. Just look how that one's just emerging out of that rustiness there. And that's an effect I like so much. I'm going to, repetition and variation, I'm going to replicate it down here. So it's kind of a rusty cross just coming up out of there. So I've got my faded, my lifted ones and my rusted ones just layering over. Let's go in with a bit of fade on this one. Let's achieve a similar sort of thing. Going to link up these two little bits of rustiness here with maybe that bit of the fade stencil. Oh, look at that. And we'll maybe layer some over the top of the lifted parts. So again, the lifted and the layered, and maybe a little bit up here, just because I'm having fun now. Yeah, and now it needs one here. Just looking at that, I could tell. Nice. There's one lifting thing we haven't done yet, isn't it? This one it is, isn't it? Yes. And we're supposed to be lifting these, pretty sure. And I'm not going to do it with water. I'm not going to go there. I'm going to go straight for the baby wipe. So getting the moisture down into those stenciled shapes, maybe a little bit up here, and maybe a little bit here over the blue. Good. Let's just dry that off like so. Whoo! So that's interesting. Almost no impact. Oh, I see. It's really, really subtle there. Can you see that cross? That's interesting. Why should that be? She thinks to herself. Let's see if I can intensify it. Maybe because I was busy going in lots of different places, I didn't give the proper focus when I was in those places. Let's see if we can lift a little bit more. Or maybe this one's now been dry for so long that it doesn't want to lift, but that can't be it. Distress inks stay water reactive unless you seal them. Maybe there's just not as many layers of ink here, so I'm not getting as strong a contrast. Let's why not try with little spits of water as well while we're here, just to see if that'll lift us up a bit more. Almost nothing doing. I'm fascinated. Maybe what's happening is it's lifting away the top layer of ink, but we did put a lot of layers of ink on this one. A lot of layers of ink. So what it's doing is it's lifting away, but it's only lifting away to the layer immediately underneath. Let's see if we can achieve any more. Let's go. So now I'm alternating water and baby wipe just to see whether I can lift a bit more of this away. Ah, now we're starting to get back to the paper underneath. I think that's probably what it was. This was a lot of layers of ink. So I've lifted away one layer of ink, but it's taken me back to the rusty hinge as opposed to back to the card. Interesting. Nice. I mean, it's still a lovely effect. There's nothing wrong with it as an effect. That I can feel has gone under the stencil a bit, so it is going to give us that softer look, but it's still quite a nice detail. It's still creating texture, and a textured, detailed background is sort of what we're after here. I'm going to use the rusty hinge to just layer a little more detail in, given that those are so subtle. Yeah, and there's something really interesting. As soon as that one is there, it pings into my eye that there are other ones there. It gives me the information that there's something going on, and therefore my eye is more inclined to pick up the presence of the others. How interesting. Our brains are extraordinary things, aren't they? That's a beauty. That's a beauty. Now sort of looking and wondering what else I want to layer in. Maybe a little bit of fade in this top corner. And one can, of course, now come and stamp over these and add collaging and all those kinds of things. But I hope that gives you a little sense of the kind of effect you can create with just a little bit of water and a stencil and some ink. Thank you so much for your company, as always. I will attempt to link what we've been using down below. I hope I'll be comprehensive with the colours. I haven't been keeping a list. I've got a mental list, but who knows how effective that is. And yeah, any comments, questions, do leave them down below. And thank you, as always, for your company. Give me a thumbs up if you've enjoyed this. If you're not already subscribed, I would love it if you would join us on this creative, crafty journey. I'll be diving in for a close-up of what we've achieved, because these effects are really at their best in close-up. Thanks so much for watching, and happy crafting all. Okay, so looking at them, I couldn't resist it. On the desk is the Salvaged Patina Distress Oxide, and I couldn't resist doing my usual thing with sprays, which is, as I said earlier, not to spray them, but to do just a little bit of spritz and flick, because I love this moment of Salvaged Patina here, and I just want that little lift of spattered detail, and that will tie all 8 of these together. They may not get used together in the end, but they have a conversation today that they are having, and I want them to share that conversation. So I'm going to let that spatter sort of rest in, do its thing while I'm tidying up and getting ready for the close-up. But I didn't. I almost did it without showing you. And then I thought, that's not fair. So I switched on the camera again. Happy crafting all.